Hey everybody, Hillbilly Handloader here. So this video is going to be about the match I recently shot at Little Rock, Arkansas, hosted by the Association of Marksmen in the National Guard, where I managed to place second in open division. I got 9th overall. But first, before we get into the match footage, let's take a look at the gear I was using. And so I can kind of go over gear that required gear for a match like this, and maybe some gear that would be nice to have. So we'll start with the rifle. Had my custom build in 223 with the 24-inch barrel from Excalibur. 1-in-7 twist, 223 wild chamber. It's got a APA Fat Bastard muzzle brake. We got a Harris bipod, 6 to 9 inch with notched legs, panning feature, cant. It's mounted onto the Arca rail here. That's an IWI Arca rail, by the way. The adapter is a Tough Tactical Tools Arca bipod adapter. So the upper receiver is just a PSA stripped upper. Nothing special about that. The optic is a Bushnell Elite 3.5 to 21 DMR2. MRAD first focal plane, and the mount is a Primary Arms SLX 20 MOA 34mm mount. The receiver is an 80%. And yes, I milled out that receiver myself. The bolt carrier group is a Toolcraft mil-spec, just a basic Toolcraft mil-spec bolt carrier. The stock is a Magpul PRS Lite with a standard carbine buffer tube, buffer spring, and buffer. The trigger is a Geisley. It's the Geisley 2-stage enhanced that they sell exclusively through Brownells. So instead of $250, it's $140. Oh, and just a basic mil-spec charging handle. I think I got it off of PSA. This rifle is a bit of a Frankenstein, so to speak. Going to the magazines, I just use Magpul P-Mags, 30s and 20s, depending on the stage. Then let's go to the ammunition. And yes, I do get rather cheap on my ammunition containers. So I was using NAS3 cases that you probably saw in a recent load development video. Now here's the load data for it. You can see I was using CCI Magnum small rifle primers, 73 grain ELD match, with 26 grains of 8208 XBR. That was the highest load that I used in that load development video, and it shot very well, so I just went with it. My velocity was about 3,080 feet per second overall, and it made for a very flat shooting load as far as 223 goes. Then for the bag, I use this Armageddon Gear Game Changer. Now we're starting to get into gear that is kind of nice to have. So you don't absolutely have to have one of these nice Armageddon Gear bags, but they are extremely useful if you have them. And you'll see me using it throughout the video. You've seen me using it in other match videos. This is an extremely versatile bag. Some folks prefer the Armageddon Gear Schmedium Game Changer. I just prefer the original Game Changer myself. It happens to have these straps if I ever want to actually strap it onto a plate or strap it directly to the rifle. It's, there's a lot of potential here. Now on the spotting side of things, that's when we're getting into gear that you don't absolutely have to have, because there's going to be a lot of people in your squad that are going to bring their own spotting gear, especially the more experienced people like myself. Now, for a precision gas gun match, and most PRS matches for that matter, a basic set of 10 power binoculars, such as these Vortex, will do very well. And you can tell these are just cheap Diamondback binoculars, but they were doing very, very well. I got them last year off the prize table at the Quantified Performance Finale, and they've been stellar all year long. And I usually just set them on top of my Bog Death Grip tripod. this right here. Now you'll notice with this gear, it is on the cheaper end. I don't have anything super duper premium, but it's all performed extremely well for me for this for all of this year shooting matches, and I have no doubt that it will continue to perform well. Take these binoculars for instance. If I ever have an issue with them, Vortex has very good warranty service. Alright, so let's get into the match footage. So this first stage, the targets were at 400 yards. They're 8x12 rectangles. I screwed up and didn't get trigger cam on this. These targets were kind of small at that range, only 2 MOA, and the wind was kind of screwing with me, and it screwed with a lot of other people that day. I ended up timing out on this stage. Oh well, it's not my favorite thing to do in these stages, but it does happen sometimes. And you can hear the spotter calling miss on this stage. He did that for pretty much the entire squad that ran this stage, but the RO had a conversation with him to make sure he didn't do it on any other stages, so you won't be hearing that after this stage.
Ready.
Alright, so this stage was a problem for everybody. The first position was on top of that piece of metal on top of the pipe, and then the second position was inside of the pipe. The targets are at 600 and 650 yards, and the targets themselves were not an issue to hit from the first position, as you can see. You'll be able to see the flash and hit indicators on them as well.
Yeah, they have them receptional or twos with balls don't hit them. That's pretty smart.
So I got my 2 hits on top just fine, but when I went into the pipe, there wasn't enough room from the position that we had to use to be able to put the bag up under the rifle. So I just had to put the rifle on the piece of metal, and it's very wobbly because I couldn't just set it flat on there. So these next 2 hits that I'm going to get are just by sheer luck.
I know that with these colors, when we use them out of bed, you got like heavy rain, low that's very noticeable. Oh yeah. Now the Hornby's and like Magneto Speed ones, not so much. I think that's what they use like reflectors.
And unfortunately, I ended up timing out again. But it seemed like that happened for a lot of shooters on that stage. Alright, this next stage is the mid-range quantifier, which you'll see at every quantified performance match. The first 2 hits are offhand on these reduced size plates, and then we'll be moving to the ladder. Got these first 2 hits without too much trouble. Then the next 3 targets, one is at 300, one was at 350, and one was at 413. The target order was 3, 4, 5, 4, 3 here. And then the last shot is in the prone at 565 yards on this IPSC plate out there.
Yep. Hit tank clear. What are that? Where they don't want you to retire.
Hit it. Nice, 63 seconds.
So not my best time, but I'll take it.
He's like, wait a second.
Alright, stage 4, we went inside the Connex box, and the target for this stage is at 408 yards. We had to get 2 hits from each position on this target. And you'll see this first position go pretty well, and the second position. Well, no, the second position was when things kind of went off the rails. I think I'm starting to see a point of impact shift in certain positions with this rifle. And my dope, it shouldn't have been an issue on this target, but I think I had dialed enough dope for this stage so the shots were going even lower. And I ended up timing out again, right on this last position. Unfortunately, that last hit didn't get in time. Alright, this next stage, the targets were at 408 and 471 yards. I had to get 1 hit on each target from each position. This first position was a very, very low kneeling. And this first target's a little bit small, but it ended up not being too much of a trouble. Yet again, seeing a little bit of point of impact shift. You'll notice I had to aim at the top of that first target, even though I dialed for that first target. It's not a data issue because the dope is fine when I'm in the prone position. But it's when I'm off of the barricade type positions where the point of impact is going a little bit low. And unfortunately it's a little common with AR-15s, the way they put pressure on these barrel nuts. Still managed to clear the stage though. Alright, this was my fastest stage of the day, and my best stage of the day as far as round count versus hits. So the targets are 458 yards, needed 1 hit on each target from each position, just 3 positions, so 6 total hits. So I actually dialed an extra 0.2 of mil because I was starting to figure out the point of impact shift on this particular rail. Alright, this next stage, just a single target at 390 yards, needed 2 hits from each position, 4 positions, 8 hits. Yet again, I dialed a couple extra tenths into my data because I knew that I was going to be shooting off of a bag again and that I would have a little bit of a shift. And you can see that I was able to aim a little closer to straight on. Now this target being kind of tucked into the wood line, it was a little hard to see. Any of the misses, I was not seeing any kind of trace or dirt flying in the scope or anything like that. It was just extremely hard to see where my misses were going.
I hope it does not like this in a left field element. Yeah. Hope it really if I had to pick a blind ammo, fuck the little metal. And it's usually priced better than this, but it's I do really good. I know what it is.
Alright, stage 8, we had 415 yards and 480 yards. First position is in the prone, right next to the block, and then we go to each of the 3 blocks in turn. 2 hits from each position, 8 hits total. Now this was another stage where the targets were in the shade, getting very little feedback if I didn't hit the target. Now this first shot here that went off, it was a little better. The wind was also starting to change. You'll notice I'm holding a little more straight up on the wind instead of left like I had been for most of the stages before this. So the wind was starting to change a little bit, and in fact it ended up going a little to the right later in this stage. See, I had to hold almost right edge on that hit. Right edge hit again. And the trigger cam is starting to give me issues. I'm not sure how much longer it's going to last. Unfortunately, ended up timing out there. Alright, stage 9, we had targets at 375, 400, and 415. Needed 1 hit on each target from 4 different positions, so 12 hits total. And we were allowed to use any 4 positions on the barricade with no repeats. Now the wind started going left to right again. I just wasn't fast enough on this particular stage. So these targets are a little bit small for a quantified performance match, but that was kind of nice to see. Alright, this last stage was all close range targets. The very first hit was just offhand and then immediately going to the barrel. The targets were 100, 130, 160, 190, 240, 260, and 345 yards. They were all reduced or I think the only one that was a full-size IPSC was the very last target. So we get this first hit standing, and then repeat on that same target, and go through the rest of them from each of these barrels that you see here. So I ended up placing 9th overall and 2nd in open division, and I managed to walk away with a certificate for $200 worth of ammo from Vayrog in Tennessee. We'll see how that ends up as far as getting the redemption on that particular certificate, but depending on what I get off of that certificate from Vayrog, you'll probably see whatever I get from them on the channel in the future, and I will make sure to mention it in future videos if that does come through like it should. But if you like what you see here, like, subscribe, comment, do all the fancy algorithm stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Nice.
79-21. 7